Hey there, book dragons. Today I'm going to do a book haul video. I did remove 15 books from the book haul because they are ones that my wife picked out. She reads like horror and suspense and a lot of manga, so a lot of the books she thought sounded vaguely interesting do not sound vaguely interesting to me. And we'll see. Like, she got a non-fiction telling of the story behind Sweeney Todd, and I've seen the musical. She got a book, what was it? The book version of I Am Legend. Didn't like the movie, myself, but the book doesn't sound too horrible. But anyway, so I took out my collection of books from the haul, this little mountain by me, and I'm gonna go through, some of them are actually both of ours because we collect certain authors together, but I just thought I'd go through what I found. The big catch to remember is most of my book purchases happen at a used bookstore, which means I get really weird combinations and collections. I don't get a lot of the newer books that come out, mostly because I can either pay 20 bucks for the new hardcover of something, or I can go to Half Price Books and pay 20 bucks to fill a bag full of as many books as it can hold. And that's exactly what we did this weekend, so I got like 2 new books, and everything else is used. So, here we go. First of all, I collect Christine Feehan. I'm trying to recollect all of her Carpathian series. All of her books, really, but the Carpathians are the main ones she writes. I have a printed list for certain authors, and she's one of them, because we've collected 3/4 or more of whatever large amount of books were written, and it's really hard to avoid getting duplicates, especially when they have an original cover from, what, 90-something? Early 2000s. There's a girl and a boy on the cover. That's not normal. We don't do that anymore. Her books now, it has, you know, a sexy man on the cover, or if the girl's the main character, a sexy girl on the cover. They don't generally do the couples anymore. And this is from 2000, so this is like a original edition, kind of. I don't know, we'll see. But I like it. I got a couple books by Jenna Schwalter. The Vampire's Bride and Darkest Whisper. Darkest Whisper is part of the Lords of the Underworld series. I read, I think, books 1, 2, and 3 way back when they came out. And it had to do with, like, these warriors and the 7 deadly sins and all this weird stuff. And I really liked her weird fantasy romance style. So I grabbed these 2. We have a handful of her books now. Nowhere near a correct order for the series or anything, but I like her enough to put up with that. Same with J.R. Ward. The Black Dagger Brotherhood is another series I read a few of when I worked at a bookstore. I made a habit of reading whatever, like, really popular authors there were that had, say, half a dozen books to their name. I'd read 1 or 2 just so I knew who to recommend. I didn't do it in other genres, so, like, I didn't read Stephen King, because if you like Stephen King, you like Stephen King. It's just a thing. And I didn't do it, like, in westerns. If I'm not going to read it and I'm not going to enjoy it no matter what, then I'm not going to bother. But with romance, I would pick out a book by whatever newer popular author with a big series was, like J.R. Ward. And then I'd go, oh, okay, well, this one is comparative to this other thing I read. So if someone says, well, I've read J.R. Ward, who would you recommend? Then I can say, okay, well, if you like her, you're gonna like Jenna Schwalter, or you're gonna like Christine Feehan, or whatever. And it was easier to do my job if I'd read stuff that people liked. We also got a couple Sherilyn Kenyon. At this point, I have to use a printed list for her, because on Goodreads, my thing won't load all the time, because she's in the middle of the alphabet of 700 books. So I've accidentally gotten duplicates multiple times, but these are not duplicates. We got the guide for the series, and then just Upon a Midnight Clear. I've read like half the series. And I think we own more than half of it now, and enough that I could reread it again and continue forward with it. So yeah, it's kind of exciting to get the series and almost complete it. This book, I did a sneaky. I judged a book not by its cover, by the spine. That little symbol for Luna. Yeah, Luna. Is a publisher that I knew published fantasy books that I've liked before and authors that I've read before. So I've never heard of Michelle Segara. I've never heard of Cast and Chaos, but I needed to fill my bag, so I looked for the little Luna symbol in the sci-fi fantasy section on Half Price Books. And every single Luna book I picked up and read the back. And this one sounded interesting because this girl is part of the elite force that keeps the city safe, and then weird things are happening and she needs to help protect everyone, and blah blah blah, and there's magic and mayhem, and it's my cup of tea, so I'm sure I'll like it. Also, there are actual runes on the girl's arms. I don't know if you can see that. And being a quirky pagan chick, I get excited when they use runes and stuff. It doesn't say anything because there's an alphabet involved, but it's still interesting, and I'm sure it'll be interesting to see how they do their magic system, and that's why I like fantasy, because I'm a weirdo. We rebought Wicked. Neither one of us realized we had given our copy away until we saw this one, and it's like almost pristine. And then it was, oh, but we have that one. No, we don't. Wait, let's check Goodreads. Oh, we don't have it. Yeah, this is one of those things, I want to see this in theater. But I liked the plot of Wicked before I realized there was a show, Broadway show, whatever. I liked the retelling of the story of the Wicked Witch of the West, who maybe isn't so, evil and wicked. We got a PC Cast book, Goddess of Love. It's one of the few of her goddess series that I haven't read. My favorite is actually Goddess of the Rose, where a girl becomes a goddess because she does so well at doing something as a mortal that another goddess says, well, now you're the goddess of dreams, you're the goddess of roses. It's really sweet and, like, sad and nice. I like it. The only thing about recollecting PC Cast is we're not getting House of Night. I used to read that series. I read, like, the first 7 books, but I had a problem, not with, like, the writing style, because it's PC Cast and her daughter. I had a problem with the main character making a mistake repeatedly in every book, and it's the same exact mistake of keeping a secret from your friends. They find out your secret and they're angry, and they tell you they're angry you kept a secret and didn't trust them. You say, I'm sorry, my bad, I thought you would judge me. And then they work things out, and in the next book, she keeps a secret from her friends, they find out, they think she doesn't trust them, and it's just, like, I get that she's a teenager, but even teenagers do learn. They, don't need to make the same mistake every single time. So, yeah, we won't be getting the House of Night, and I probably won't ever finish the series, even though I kind of really liked it, because I loved the type of vampires, and it was really quirky, but, they ruined it by having the same plot point over and over, so, whatever. I also collect Anne McCaffrey. This book is actually from 1992. I was 5 years old when this came out. Anne McCaffrey writes a book series, The Dragon Riders of Pern, or The Dragons of Pern, which I absolutely adore. I've read almost every book except for the ones that her son has written, because she passed on the whole, like, fantasy world to him, gave him permission to write in it, and then she passed away. But this one, Partnership, is one of her little side series where ships have a symbiotic relationship with someone of a certain psychic talent or something. She's one of the few, like, sci-fi fantasy writers that I like. I'm more into fantasy, and I'm more willing to read a, like, complete high fantasy story than I am to read high sci-fi. Mostly because I enjoy alternate cultures with magic. But even though there's not magic, there's measurable, scientifically proven psychic abilities. It's still interesting enough because of her writing style that I read it. The next few books are kind of part of a project. I am researching erotica and romance sex scene writing stuff for my own reasons. So I have a few books. I grabbed a book that's nonfiction that is Cuffed, Tied, and Satisfied. It's about safe kinks and how to integrate them into stuff. But the bigger purchase for this particular activity is this pile of erotica. I got Zane, Emma Hawley, Anya Bast, and Laura Lee, along with an anthology that has a bunch of short stories. These are all authors that I have seen. They were labeled erotica when I first started working in a bookstore in 2008. 2009, somewhere back then. And then when romance authors started writing more elaborate sex scenes, they started republishing these exact same stories in the normal romance section. So it's the look at the progression of romance and how it evolved to allow more explicit sex angles without having to be erotica, and also how erotica has evolved. And I find the whole idea of how genres evolve fascinating anyway, and since I thoroughly enjoy reading romance, and I grew up on it, like starting at age 10, my mom handed me romance books. It's interesting to see how it's grown from, you know, boy meets girl and there's love, to the more nitty-gritty boy meets girl, they are attracted to each other, they do things, and they fall in love. Both of which are valid, but I am obviously researching the more nitty-gritty version. Now, speaking of research, my favorite purchases from going to the used bookstore are always finding the books about writing. I have not purchased... I don't think I've ever purchased any new, non-clearance, non-used or marked down books about writing, just because I could Google this stuff. And while it would take a lot more effort to try and find really good, really interesting, really valid approaches to writing while looking online, I'm not willing to pay 20 bucks necessarily to find something out. But when I go to the used bookstore, a lot of times someone has sold their writing books, and I get really interesting perspectives, or books that I've heard of, and then I pick them up and go, well, since it's here, why not? For example, I got a textbook. It is the College Handbook of Creative Writing, and has little exercises and stuff in it, which obviously I wouldn't have purchased if it had been a new textbook, because textbooks are expensive. Chapter After Chapter, which is a guide on not, like, losing track of yourself or getting distracted while you're writing. I've passed this one up multiple times just because it was $4, and I got it this time because it fit in my bag, and, you know, paying $20 for a bag full of books means I'm willing to shove things in there that I would normally kind of consider skipping. Creating Unforgettable Characters, while not a particularly attractive book, has really interesting examples from characters from Lord of the Rings, or from Buffy, or from, I don't know, pick a popular movie or something. So having the examples along with building a character that has unique personality traits and has realistic human aspects, so, you know, realistic failures and all that, I like the idea of that. Create Your Writer platform is another one that I found interesting because I connect with a lot of indie writers through Goodreads and through Facebook and through their blogs, and this is all about building that kind of platform so you can have a community and connect to an audience and enjoy the craft of writing and have fun. So I was like, oh, cool. Again, not something I would have purchased because you can Google articles about that kind of thing, but since it fit in my bag, yeah, totally. I got Beginnings, Middles, and Ends, literally a book about connecting your beginnings, middles, and ends together. I believe that's another textbook one. Pencil Dancing. This one is a spirituality book about embracing your creative spirit. There were a batch of Christian fiction and Christian nonfiction writing books that I skipped over. But this one is not specifically religious. It's just basically like a pep talk positivity thing. So, you know, believe in yourself and let yourself make mistakes and let yourself make first drafts and blah, blah, blah. Go team, go. So, you know, cute and quirky. And then another one, Writing Fiction, A Guide to the Narrative Craft, is another textbook with different, like, little things you could do, exercises and stuff. Again, I wouldn't have bought a textbook because I'm sure it was $100-something when it came out, but it has interesting things because I always thumb through. And obviously I got it really cheap, so. And then my last book from my book haul is a book that I specifically went to Barnes & Noble for because it's been out for a couple weeks and I was waiting till I could go. And that's this poetry book, Depression and Other Magic Tricks, by Sabrina Benem. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She's a spoken word poet who I adore. She writes about depression and life stuff. But the depression's the one that caught me. She wrote a poem called Explaining My Depression to My Mother, where she's talking about how her mom tells her, you know, just Just go to a party. Just hang out with your friends. Why don't you just choose to be happy? And so she's explaining that, you know, depression isn't just choosing not to be happy, Mom. It's complicated. I look forward to reading through the book. As a poet and as a spoken word enthusiast, she's one of the authors, or poets, whose names I actually remember, and whose book I was totally willing to go fork out money for. So, we'll see. I'll probably do a review of it just because I love her poems. But yeah. So that is my personal book haul. Again, there were over a dozen books that I pulled out because they're not ones I'm going to read and I didn't see the point in adding them to the video. Yeah, this is a good month. We go about once a month, so there'll be another book haul and another stack of books that I'll have to go through. And hopefully some interesting stuff. So, hope you enjoyed and keep reading.